I believe that there are channelers, mediums, and psychics who can get glimpses into the past and into the future. Unfortunately, there are too many that are out there, self-serving, selfish, and self-centered. Please challenge everybody, even those whom you care about personally may have been misled.
You have 2-566-7330. Okay, Robert, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rod. And again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that we haven't completely destroyed your belief systems and the foundation of your existence. Again, we simply are attempting to provide material that is out there. It's documented. It's available. Please question and challenge everything that we've said and find out for yourselves. Thank you again to Rod and Dave Hinkson, to Ivy West, the American Freedom Radio Network, my family and my crew. Thank you to all of you for making it possible for me to share this story with you. In this next segment, I would like to touch on something that is extraordinarily personal to me. It is about Hopi prophecy, about the petroglyphs, and about the coming events. As I said at the very beginning of the program, I am Native American. I am a full-blood. I am half Hopi and half Apache. But I must stress that I am not a spokesperson for any tribe, for any group. I am not a medicine man. I'm not a shaman. I do not hold any position within any of the tribes. I am, as you, a common man. I simply happen to be of Native American extraction. I have been fortunate enough to live my culture and my world. As I said earlier, I have been a dancer and a performer. I have been able to act in movies, perform in documentaries, and present my dancing to numerous audiences, to hundreds of thousands of people across the globe. I'm an extremely fortunate man, very likely the luckiest man I know on this planet. The Hopi prophecies. In Native America, one of the most highly respected groups, probably the most written about group in the Native American world, are the Hopi Indians. They live in the near Four Corners area of northern Arizona. One of the Hopi prophecies that appears to be coming to fruition is a prophecy about the return of a blue star kachina. According to the Hopi tradition, a kachina is the spirit of the powers that be. If you were to take an eagle and strip him of its feathers and its talons and its beak, if you were to remove the physical body, what you would have left, whether you call it the breath, the soul, or the essence, that is the kachina of the eagle. It is the spirit. If you were to remove the ice, crystals, the particles that create the skin of the snowflake, the soul or the essence that remains is known as the snowflake kachina. The Hopi believe that everything has a spirit. Wind, trees, rain, the world, rocks, animals, everything has a spirit. They all have kachina. The Hopi believe, in general, that we are nearing the end of the fourth world. This does not mean that the world is going to be destroyed, obliterated, and simply cease to exist. It means that this cycle is about to come to a close. One of the signs of the closing of the fourth world is the return of a figure known as Nangasohu. Now, we deal with Nangasohu at quite lengthy effort in the book called Prophecy. Nangasohu is a very, very dramatic figure. He's a tall figure with a four-armed black cross on its face. It has an enormous war bonnet, feathers that peak above its head and trail all the way down to the floor. It is said that Nangasohu will appear in the final days of the close of the fourth world. One of the distinctive features of Nangasohu is that he, number one, is a star. He is a spirit of the stars. And the long trailing headdress is a sign that he has an extraordinarily long tail. Recently, in July of last year, there was a discovery by two young amateur astronomers, one in New Mexico and one here in Phoenix, Arizona, who pointed their telescopes up into the sky, and they made an astonishing discovery, a comet in the vicinity of Jupiter. They named the comet in honor of these two individuals and their discovery, and it was known as the Hale-Bopp comet. What is most intriguing about Hale-Bopp is that when it was discovered in its location outside the orbit of Jupiter, it was shining too brightly. It simply, in its place, could not be giving off as much light as it should. Under normal circumstances, a comet at that distance from the sun will not glow as brightly. All comets glow because of the solar wind. It is the particles leaving the sun, striking the surface of the comet, that make, one, the tail and the brightness. Comet Hale-Bopp was far too bright, and its tail was far too long. Its tail measured approximately 2 astronomical units, 2 AU, which means the tail was pretty close to 2 million miles long. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Nearly 200 million miles long. This comet appeared to make course corrections. As it approached the Earth's orbit and continued around, it began to act erratically. It is not acting like any comet in our history. Hopi prophecy suggests that that is exactly what the returning Nangasohu would do. We had last year begun to talk about the return of a particular star, only to find that in July it was discovered. Now, what could possibly be the link with crop circles? I invite you to receive a catalog from one Mr. Colin Andrews, probably the leading expert on crop circles, and he has undertaken a task of diagramming and keeping a record of all of the crop circle formations over the last many years. On July the 22nd of 1995, on that evening, amateur astronomers Hale and Bopp discovered the comet. On that very same evening, only one crop circle appeared in England. It was an extraordinarily large circle, but in its middle was a 4-armed cross. I suggest that we were being told that an announcement was made that on July 22nd, the 4-armed cross, the return of Nangasohu, the figure with the 4-armed cross on its face, that we were being told that Hopi prophecy, that ancient prophecy, was being fulfilled. According to the prophecies in Egypt, there is a comet which is supposed to return at the end of a royal period. This comet is going to be preceded by 2 smaller comets, but still distinctive and bright in their appearance. Curiously, Hale-Bopp is going to make its most dramatic show on April the 1st of 1997. Just a few months ago, in late March, another comet was discovered by the gentleman in Japan whose name was Hyakutake. We were treated to a display in the skies that was extraordinary. Hyakutake made such a display that people were having night watch parties. But here's an interesting coincidence. Hyakutake on April the 1st of 1996 was within just a few seconds of arc from the very same point that Hale Bopp will be on April the 1st of 1997. This suggests a possibility, a curious coincidence at the very least, that they are in the same place and virtually the same time, 1 year apart. I am going to suggest that Hopi prophecy predicted the arrival of Hyakutake, and it is predicting one more comet. It is very likely going to appear in September or October. It, too, is going to make quite a display, quite a show in the skies. It is the second precursor, the second harbinger to the comet Hale Bopp. Am I suggesting that Hale Bopp signals the end of the fourth world? Not at all. I would like to share with you at this point a second Hopi prophecy. Many of the Hopi elders, with all due respect, have suggested another prophecy about the return of the Bahana, that it in fact tells us that a great white brother will soon appear at the end of the fourth world to set things aright. Our elders have interpreted this to mean an Anglo-Caucasian male, very likely the President of the United States, who will surface and who will bring the Hopi people back to their rightful place, and that peace and order will be restored, and we will have a one-world unity. I respect my elders. I have never betrayed them. But I, with all respect, disagree. I suggest that the Hopi prophecy of the return of Bahana, the great white brother, is actually the return of a great white companion. One of the hidden secrets of the Hopi prophecy, and I violate no tradition in revealing this, is that the return of Bahana the return of the blue star Kachina Nangasohu is always a double appearance. Every event that takes place in prophecy is always brought out in pairs. One of the secrets of Nangasohu is that he always appears as doubles. He never appears alone. The Hopi prophecy, the hidden Hopi prophecy, suggests that his brother will appear 7 years later. The second prophecy about Bahana, the great white companion, I suggest tells us that 7 years after the arrival of Hale Bopp, a second larger white, in quotation marks, comet will appear. If we take the arrival of Hale Bopp as 1997, then according to the existing calendar, I suggest that in the year 2004, we will find the second great white comet appearing in the skies. And I am going to suggest that that is the signal, the arrival of the divinity, of the gods that be, of the powers, of the extraterrestrials, the aliens, whatever one wishes to call them. I suggest that in the year 2004, per our current calendar, that is the time we can look for their arrival. If we correct the calendar to allow for the actual birth date of Jesus, scholars, astrocomputer experts, people who have recreated the heavens, who have taken evidence from the Dead Sea Scrolls, the writings of the time, have all come to a consensus. They agree that Jesus was very likely born in 7 BC, not in the year 0, but in 7 BC. If then we correct the calendar by 7 years, we need to add 7 more years to our calendar in order to properly adjust for the birth of Jesus. Thus, the return of the comet in the year 2004, corrected by 7 years, puts it at the year 2011. I suggest that that is too coincidentally close to the year 2012, which is the end of the Mayan calendar, and which ties in quite clearly with the Oriental calendar and their time frame as to when the world comes to an end. It is too coincidental. I suggest that the blue star Kachina, Comet Hyakutake, and the crop circles are all leading us to the same conclusion. The powers that be are about to return. Now, I want to take a moment here to explain to you, the public, for the first time, a secret that we have carried with us for some time, which will show you the deviousness, the fraudulent behavior, the self-aggrandizement of some of the speakers who are on the so-called UFO circuit. Years ago, I was giving a lecture at one of the universities to some professors and their wives about the Kachinas of the Hopi. I, at that time, was talking about star Kachinas. There was Nangasoho, Sohu, Hilili, there were numerous. Each one of them bore stars very prominently on the chest, in their hair, on their feathers, and even on their face. I had produced several carvings and was trying to talk about each one of them and their meaning. There was one Kachina who was bright yellow, another one that was blue, one that was red, one that was multicolored. In response to one of the questions of the professors, I described Nangasahu, the chasing star, the fulfillment of prophecy, the harbinger. I referred to this star Kachina with the blue face as the blue star Kachina. In this fashion, in this very simple way, I could convey to the professors and their wives who and which Kachina I was talking about. I wish to advise you now that in the Hopi mythology, in the cosmology and description of Kachinas, there is no such thing as a blue star Kachina. This was an effort on my part years ago to describe a particular carving. What I am suggesting is that, in essence, I made an error nearly 30 years ago to some college professors. The Hopi cosmology has no blue star Kachina. This is a term that I invented, that I have used. It is actually an error. I marvel at the speakers, at the so-called researchers who have been putting out in their magazines and in their newspapers and their newsletters that they have worked closely with the Hopi, that they have received the prophecies of the blue star Kachina, that they have in fact learned from the elders the secrets of the blue star Kachina. Ladies and gentlemen, I made a mistake 30 years ago. I oversimplified. And the researchers today who proclaim themselves the holders and interpreters of the blue star Kachina, who have worked with the elders of the blue star Kachina, are 100% wrong. It is a deliberate deceit. There is no such thing as a blue star Kachina. The crop circles that are appearing today have been attributed to two individuals named Doug and Dave. I had the horrible experience a couple of nights ago of watching one of the programs which I have a great deal of regard for on cable TV, and they took a good friend, Colin Andrews, to task. They attempted to debunk the crop circles. They attempted to show that all of the crop circles were hoaxes. I am extremely dismayed that programs, that organizations which purport to tell the truth have an incredible slant. I have seen other researchers taken apart on national TV. Things like abductions and crop circles and UFO experiences are being denied in the media. We are being told that these are all fantasies, illusions, they're mind games, the manipulations of psychologists, the twisted work of individuals who are trying to gain fame and make a fortune. I guarantee you that individuals like Graham Hancock and Colin Andrews, myself and others who are truly trying to bring out the truth are not making a great deal of money out of this. We are simply getting from day to day trying to produce the truth. Why is the government so bent on denying the existence of UFOs? Why is the government denying the existence of crop circles? Why do they struggle so hard to deny the existence of extraterrestrials? As I have suggested earlier, it isn't because they're trying to preserve their positions and their institutions. It's because of the fear that they have that when the truth comes out, we will find that they really don't have control of this planet, that they really are beholden to other powers, and that we are being deceived. Recently, a lot of attention has been drawn towards a being in Puerto Rico. It is known as the chupacabras, the goat sucker. The chupacabras has been portrayed on television. We've seen it in the magazines and in the newspapers. There is a tremendous furor over this chupacabras and how it attacks the goats and the rabbits and now has begun to attack human beings. The fever has gripped the United States, and now there are sightings of chupacabras in Florida, New Mexico, Arizona, and my understanding is that chupacabras was sighted in southern Los Angeles. Who and what is the chupacabras? From the minimal material that we have received from other researchers, what we have seen, the documentation, the videos, it appears that the chupacabras, no pun intended, is a scapegoat. It appears that the chupacabras is capable of attacking 8 goats simultaneously. He does not claw them or bite them in the neck to kill them. In fact, it appears that there are puncture wounds at the base of the neck. A needle-like snout is inserted into the brain. The creature is stunned and dies from brain damage. And this can be done to 8 goats, 8 rabbits simultaneously. I suggest that there is no creature on this planet that could possibly do that. I suggest there is no creature on another planet that could do this. The clincher for me was a video which purported to show approximately 24 birds who had been attacked either in flight or on the ground simultaneously by this one creature. I am suggesting to you that this is not a wild beast. If this creature is responsible for all of these attacks, then the creature has to have some sort of technology that accompanies it. It has to have some sort of an instrument or weapon that stuns the creatures and leaves no sign. It has to have an intelligence in order to carry and use this kind of weapon. It may very well be an extraterrestrial presence if, in fact, it does what is attributed to it. I honestly believe that those researchers, some of whom I have respect for, are being misled. I believe that the chupacabras is being accused of all of these attacks and will ultimately be blamed for cattle mutilations. I believe they are looking for a scapegoat so that we will look elsewhere. I believe the cattle mutilations. I believe the attacks in Puerto Rico and attacks all over the world are not done by chupacabras. They're done by extraterrestrial presences and or military participants. I suggest that there is a secret military working hand in hand with the chupacabras, with extraterrestrials, and with the powers that be. If this is not the most outrageous conspiracy theory you have heard, my apologies. But it gets even better. Last year, a video surfaced, a film purporting to be the autopsy of an extraterrestrial. It was known as the Santilli tape. The Santilli tape purports to show an individual who is being taken apart by scientists very likely in the 1940s. A national production the Fox company, the Fox network, produced the video, showed the video on national TV not once but twice because of the response of the audience. I had difficulty watching that. I don't believe it was an autopsy. I believe it was a dissection. The film was very, very brief. At the tail end of the segment, and you can still rent the alien autopsy tape in one of your local video stores, at the tail end of the segment, there was wreckage shown, handled by what appeared to be a military or an Air Force individual, in which he showed not only debris and wreckage, but he showed several I-beams that had apparently hieroglyphic writing on them. I, as many other people, I think, other researchers who have worked with ancient languages, took a look at the hieroglyphs and thought they looked vaguely familiar. To make a long story short, we were presented with stills. We were actually able to see at one of the conferences the original film brought to us by Mr. Santilli. We were also shown footage which has never been released to the public. I suggest that this alien autopsy film is based on the truth. However, it is a deliberately hoaxed video in order to bring a black eye to the UFO community. I use as an analogy, for example, the Oliver Stone film JFK. None of the actors in the movie were present in Dallas in 1963. The film footage used for the movie was not what was used in 1963. If we use the same criteria used to judge the Santilli tape, then we have to suggest that the Oliver Stone film is a hoax. The characters are not the same ones. The film stock is not the same one. Some of the props used in the movie were not in use in 1963. By the same criteria, the Oliver Stone film is a hoax. However, the contents are real. The contents are true. I also will go out on a limb and suggest that the contents of the Santilli tape are true. They represent an actual autopsy. The hieroglyphs do, in fact, have some truth behind them. But the film itself is a hoax. The film has to be proven a falsehood in order that the UFO community and any and all researchers who have spoken on behalf of the film, that they be given a black eye, their reputation sullied. The media in general descended on the Santilli tape and branded it a hoax from the very beginning. I suggest that the contents are true. The Santilli tape itself is a fake. I have seen additional footage. This footage has never been revealed. I believe that in the second footage, we have evidence that is undeniable, that proves that the beings depicted in the autopsy are real. I say beings because there are at least 2 different autopsies that are shown. I find it a tragedy that Mr. Santilli, the producers of the video, have been so attacked, so abused, that they do not want to release the additional footage. I suggest that that was part of the plan. I honestly believe that if the additional footage was released, if the world's media would not descend on Mr. Santilli and the others, that we would have the evidence before us to show us that these beings were highly evolved and that there is truth to the story. Shortly after the release of the video, and after having received some data and slides from an individual in Germany, a good friend, we offered a decipherment of the glyphs at the tail end of the film. Again, I believe the tape is a hoax, but I believe the glyphs were simply copied from an existing I-beam. The decipherment of the hieroglyph is astonishing in its simplicity and what it says. Unfortunately, the hieroglyphs were incomplete, and we could only decipher a small portion. The interpretation, however, is consistent with some of the most ancient symbols and the most ancient glyphs in our own records. We released the Santilli decipherment only to be unmercilessly attacked. I am saddened that the UFO community as a whole is populated by a precious few individuals who are true researchers and a great number of individuals seeking fame, glory, the position of being adored, of being messiahs and gurus. I am disheartened by the UFO community as a whole, by the powers that be. I think the average individual who belongs to the different organizations truly seeks the truth, but they are being misled. I have resigned from the UFO circuit. I have resigned from the professional speaking circuit. I no longer make public appearances. I no longer will put myself in front of the public to be attacked not by the audiences, but by the conference producers, the planners, those individuals who are concerned only with how many dollars they put in their pocket. There are so precious few people that are out there who are seeking the truth, that if you are fortunate enough to find them, whether they are doing research in politics, religions, UFOs, extraterrestrials, whatever the case might be, challenge them and question them, because the true researcher will not be disturbed. If you can point out a flaw in their work, if you can point out an error, they will welcome it. If an individual reacts strongly to a criticism, to an attack of the work, then I can only suggest that they are not truly seeking the truth, but they are more concerned with their image. I believe that Chupacabras is real. It is a scapegoat. I believe that Yeti and Sasquatch are real, but they are scapegoats. I believe that the Santilli tape is real, but it has to be portrayed as a hoax. The Roswell incident is a relatively accurate depiction of events that occurred in the Southwest. I suggest that time be spent by UFO researchers who are looking for the truth, and I suggest that they go out into the desert. I suggest that they go to the primitives and the savages, and they begin to develop a relationship. The history of the relationship between the primitives of Native America and the civilized people of this country has not been very kind to Native Americans. I am not going to plead their case. But for those UFO researchers, those individuals who want to find out about the crashes and the disks and the visits of extraterrestrials, they're going to have to take the time to develop a relationship. They're going to have to win the trust. They're going to have to take the time to prove themselves. Because if they do, they're going to find a fascinating source of stories, not myths and not legends, but of actual events that have occurred in North America over the last few hundred years. I wish to stress once again that as disturbing as some of the conclusions are that we are trying to present to you and have been over the last few hours and last night, please do not accept anything that I say. Challenge and question at all of it. Go to as many sources as you can. I am not a spokesperson. I am not someone who demands credibility. I simply present this work. The concern that I have for our world is that when the true gods, when the powers that be, when the extraterrestrials responsible for our existence, responsible for our evolution, when they return in the next few years, we will not be prepared. We are going to look at them as the villains. We're going to accept an earthly power as a savior, as a messiah, and as a guru. I'm going to leave you with probably the scariest thought for most of the individuals in the audience. The oldest religion, after 30 years of research, the oldest religion appears to be based on a mother goddess. Those of you who are familiar with our work or who were here last night know that I have suggested that the single most powerful star system is the Orion system, populated by reptilian beings, and headed up by a queen. I suggest it is this queen who is going to return in the next 10 years, very likely less. And she is going to find out what we have done with this planet. I am not advocating the return to a mother goddess religion. I am advocating the return to a respectful position for an extraterrestrial power led by a queen. One of the travesties, one of the tragedies of the effort of Ra was not just the mind reprogramming, but the change that he made in the way that things functioned on our planet. In the earliest of societies, it was always the woman who headed up the family. It was always the woman who was the priestess. It was always the woman who had connection to the heavens. Through the deliberate efforts and perversions of Ra, that has been changed. I honestly believe that the future of mankind lies in the hands of women. It is necessary for us as males not to surrender completely what we do for our families and for that which we believe in. But I think we need to open the door and to begin to listen to the intuition that women have. Men are warriors. We are, in essence, the protectors. But we are also the supporters of those people who have direct connection to the stars. And while I do not wish to undermine the foundation of our society, I believe that women need to not only achieve a position which is equal to, but they're going to have to take a hand in guiding our world. They are the ones who have the direct connection to the powers that be. If we were to imagine a reptilian humanoid, can you, in your mind, picture whether or not they would have a tremendous amount of hair? No, they would not. If we were to imagine a canine or wolfen-type humanoid, we discussed this last evening and we addressed this in our Terra papers, would we expect a wolfen being to have a tremendous amount of body hair? Yes. I suggest that if you take a look at the population of this planet, you can see that women in general have more of a reptilian humanoid trait, less body hair, more slender, and that males tend to have the more corporeal, the larger, and the hairier status that a wolfen creature would have. In fact, the gene for baldness of no hair on the head is passed on through the female. The research we present has been documented, and you can find numerous sources. I recently had the opportunity to do a program in a city that is very, very devout in its faith. I was absolutely surprised by the response. Several of the callers berated me, scolded me, yelled at me, and quoted from one book alone. Most of the listeners who called in, however, also had enough of an open mind, practiced enough tolerance to at least entertain the possibility that we have been misled. And it isn't just one religion, it is many. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for the time that you have given me. Whether you choose to believe in extraterrestrials or not, the questions that we have to address, the short-term questions, revolve around our existence on this planet. Did Jesus exist? Was the church created in a benevolent vein, or was it a political play? What about UFOs and the Santilli tape and the crop circles? How do all of these things fit together? We suggest that there is one common thread. We have been the victims of manipulation of the powers that be descended from the stars. Very briefly, Bayesian Lee and Lincoln, Barbara Thiering, Hugh Schoenfeld, Zachariah Sitchin, Holger Kirsten, Robert Bauvel, Graham Hancock. The authors go on and on and on. Give us a call in the morning, we'll be happy to provide you with the reading list. In these last few moments, I would like to simply say, I am not a prophet of doom. I do not believe the world is going to come to an end. I think the world is going to continue long after that feeble experiment known as man disappears. If man disappears, it will be because of his own hand and because he permits the powers that be to manipulate him. Take a look at those people that are sitting next to you. Are they worth fighting for? Are they worth opening up the mind and seeking the truth? If you ignore the bear in the woods, it does not mean he doesn't exist. You cannot deal with a cockroach problem until you admit there are cockroaches. Is there a problem? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it terrestrial? Is it a church? Is it a government? Or is it that we seek to empower that which is out there? The answer lies within each one of you. I do not mean to preach. I am simply saying that there are memories locked up inside of you. I believe you should have one simple maxim, one thing that is taught to the Apache warriors and most of Native Americans, the societies believe in the simple maxim: trust your gut. Whatever is going on inside is very likely the truth for you. If there is a solution to all of this, and I can simplify it, and it's probably dangerous to do so, I can recommend this one thing. Pursue your passion. Whatever it is that brings fire to your life, whether it be a loved one, whether it be an activity, whatever it is that brings fire into your life, pursue that. Because as long as you keep your fire burning, as long as you pursue that intensity, the spirit is empowered, the individual is empowered, the ability to seek the truth and recognize it for what it is also empowered. The secret to life is passion. It isn't about winning, it's about playing. With great apologies, I would very much in the future like to be able to talk to you about spirituality, about heaven, about God, about the ultimate being. My family is offering some books. We offer in the future some vision quests. Vision quests which are not intended for the purpose of learning ritual and how to build a sweat and how to do the traditional, what is in the books, traditional techniques. But in fact, it's about unveiling self. It's about unveiling what goes on inside. In the last few moments, a tribute to my daughter. The future lies in our hands, but it is not about us. It's about our daughters. It's about our sons. Whether you choose to pursue the truth for political reasons, religious reasons, moral reasons, it is all about the future. We have been extremely fortunate to have an opportunity to live in this time, to live during these events. It is also our misfortune to live in this time and during these events. Aquí con honor, aquí con respeto. Aquí con el hombre yo soy co. I thank you to my daughter. I thank you to my wife. I thank you to my crew. I am not a shaman. I'm not a medicine man. I'm not an elder. I'm not a spokesperson for any tribe. I am not born of noble blood. I'm not a chief. I have no status whatsoever. I'm not a guru. I'm not a channeler. I'm not a psychic. I am not a medium. I have no special powers. I have no paranormal abilities. I am, in fact, no one special. I do not say that to denigrate who I am. I simply say that I am, as you, a common man. I am frustrated and I am upset. I have spent 30 years researching the truth. I am discouraged with what is out there. I am enheartened by the fact that there are renegades, that there are those who seek independence, that there are those who can take a look at the messages given to us in the media, given to us by institutions, organizations, churches, banks, and that you can see through it. My apologies to anyone and everyone who I have offended. My thank yous to those of you who have called and supported the work. I advocate the books of Mr. Jordan Maxwell, Zachariah Sitchin, Graham Hancock, and the others. I thank you, Rod Remlin and Ivy West. Thank you to the American Radio Network. And Rod, with great appreciation, I hope you get back on pretty soon. I think the world needs you. I think what you're doing has been phenomenal. I would like to give Rod the last few minutes of the program to have his words. Rod has been extremely supportive, and I want to give him a chance to speak to you in these last few minutes. Thank you again, Rod. Thanks, Dave, and everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, these last few minutes, with great apologies, I need to leave just a few minutes early. Thank you, Rod, and the American Freedom Radio Network. Thank you to my crew, my family, everyone. And guys, take care. The truth is out there, but it's not going to come to you. You've got to go after it.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, and good night, guys. I believe that there are channelers, mediums, and psychics who can get glimpses into the past and into the future. Unfortunately, there are too many that are out there, self-serving, selfish, and self-centered. Please challenge everybody, even those whom you care about personally, may have been misled.
You have 2-566-7330. Okay, Robert, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rod. And again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that we haven't completely destroyed your belief systems and the foundation of your existence. Again, we simply are attempting to provide material that is out there. It's documented. It's available. Please question and challenge everything that we've said and find out for yourselves. Thank you again to Rod and Dave Hinkson, to Ivy West, the American Freedom Radio Network, my family and my crew. Thank you to all of you for making it possible for me to share this story with you. In this next segment, I would like to touch on something that is extraordinarily personal to me. It is about Hopi prophecy, about the petroglyphs, and about the coming events. As I said at the very beginning of the program, I am Native American. I am a full-blood. I am half Hopi and half Apache. But I must stress that I am not a spokesperson for any tribe, for any group. I am not a medicine man. I'm not a shaman. I do not hold any position within any of the tribes. I am, as you, a common man. I simply happen to be of Native American extraction. I have been fortunate enough to live my culture and my world. As I said earlier, I have been a dancer and a performer. I have been able to act in movies, perform in documentaries, and present my dancing to numerous audiences, to hundreds of thousands of people across the globe. I'm an extremely fortunate man, very likely the luckiest man I know on this planet. The Hopi prophecies. In Native America, one of the most highly respected groups, probably the most written about group in the Native American world, are the Hopi Indians. They live in the near Four Corners area of northern Arizona. One of the Hopi prophecies that appears to be coming to fruition is a prophecy about the return of a blue star Kachina. According to the Hopi tradition, brightly, all comets glow because of the solar wind. It is the particles leaving the sun, striking the surface of the comet, that make one, the tail, and the brightness. Comet Hale-Bopp was far too bright, and its tail was far too long. Its tail measured approximately 2 astronomical units, 2 AU, which means the tail was pretty close to 2 million miles long. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Nearly 200 million miles long. This comet appeared to make course corrections. As it approached the Earth's orbit and continued around, it began to act erratically. It is not acting like any comet in our history. Hopi prophecy suggests that that is exactly what the returning Nangasahu would do. We had last year begun to talk about the return of a particular star, only to find that in July it was discovered. Now, what could possibly be the link with crop circles? I invite you, a kachina is the spirit of the powers that be. If you were to take an eagle and strip him of its feathers and its talons and its beak, if you were to remove the physical body, what you would have left, whether you call it the breath, the soul, or the essence, that is the kachina of the eagle. It is the spirit. If you were to remove the ice, crystals, the particles that create the skin of the snowflake, the soul or the essence that remains is known as the snowflake kachina. The Hopi believe that everything has a spirit. Wind, trees, rain, the world, rocks, animals, everything has a spirit. They all have kachina. The Hopi believe, in general, that we are nearing the end of the fourth world. This does not mean that the world is going to be destroyed, obliterated, and simply cease to exist. It means that this cycle is about to come to a close. One of the signs of the closing of the fourth world is the return of a figure known as Nangasahu. Now, we deal with Nangasahu at quite lengthy effort in the book called Prophecy. Nangasahu is a very, very dramatic figure. He's a tall figure with a four-armed black cross on its face. It has an enormous war bonnet, feathers that peak above its head and trail all the way down to the floor. It is said that Nangasahu will appear in the final days of the close of the fourth world. One of the distinctive features of Nangasahu is that he, number one, is a star. He is a spirit of the stars. And the long trailing headdress is a sign that he has an extraordinarily long tail. Recently, in July of last year, there was a discovery by two young amateur astronomers, one in New Mexico and one here in Phoenix, Arizona, who pointed their telescopes up into the sky, and they made an astonishing discovery, a comet in the vicinity of Jupiter. They named the comet in honor of these two individuals and their discovery, and it was known as the Hale-Bopp comet. What is most intriguing about Hale-Bopp is that when it was discovered in its location outside the orbit of Jupiter, it was shining too brightly. It simply, in its place, could not be giving off as much light as it should. Under normal circumstances, a comet at that distance from the sun will not glow as